Hello and thank you for joining the Monday edition of Journalists Hangout. I'm Ayodele Ozugbakun. The race by humanity to defeat the deadly coronavirus pandemic is still on. Join the fight by observing all safety precautions against its spread. Today on the program, Pastor Bakare donates 2 church buildings as isolation centers and encourages other churches to copy his example as NMA nurses warn that home treatment will increase COVID-19 infections. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade-Otitoju and Yomi Owope. So if you are ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us. Charity, they say, should begin at home, while leaders must be seen to lead by example. As Nigeria continues to battle rising cases of COVID-19, more resources will be required as part of his own support to fight. The General Overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church, Pastor Bakare, donated 2 church buildings to Lagos State as isolation centers. In a video shared by his church, Pastor Bakare called on other churches with multiple facilities to copy his example. Let's share the video with you.
Kudos to all our health workers. Our prayers are constantly with them in all the isolation centers across the length and breadth of our nation. May the good Lord strengthen and protect them all from every professional hazard. In the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. This morning, I would like to bring some ethical corrections to some of the lamentations of certain people within the church over the ban of congregational worship in churches across the land while markets and hospitals are allowed to operate. I'm so glad that not only churches are prevented now from congregating, the mosques also are locked down. The government order to open the markets to operate for a few days is to prevent hunger, especially in the lives of daily earners, because the palliatives by the government cannot go to every citizen in their homes right now. Not only that, those churches with multiple facilities, rather than their leaders criticizing the government, they should collaborate with them. They must be prepared to offer some of their halls to governmental authorities as isolation centers in support of the efforts of the government. After all, it was to the safe custody of the innkeeper that the Good Samaritan, the parable of the Good Samaritan, kept the wounded man left for the dead on the road to Jericho. The innkeeper is a pastor, the inn is a church, the wounded man is a sick world, and the 2 denarii is wages for 2,000 years, because a day with the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like a day. I recommend that our church halls be made available to governments as isolation centers, and those of us who could afford it should be there to support the government. I'm not suggesting what we're not prepared to do. We have already done that in our church. We have offered 2 of our facilities to the Lagos State government, and the private residences we have in Abeokuta, we have offered also to the Ogun State government. Let the church lead in this campaign and support the government rather than criticizing them for all the adverse tasks they are presently confronted with. Having said that, brothers and sisters, we should all thank God that there's no distance in the spirit, lockdown or no lockdown, and that the church is not the building but the saints of God, that is the body of Christ. So if we cannot congregate because of the present lockdown, we can be very effective in our neighborhood as our brother's keeper and in our various workplaces for those involved in essential services and other daily earners that are permitted for now to go about their trade or business for a few hours of the day. We cannot thank God enough for the lifestyle neighborhood and marketplace evangelism explosion that is taking place right now, just as it happened to the early church in Jerusalem after the death of Stephen, the first Christian martyr. The Bible records that those who were scattered went everywhere preaching the word. COVID-19 may have resulted into lockdown, that has made congregational worship in a building impossible at the moment, but every home must become more or less a church in the house center, and every office table and shop stall must become a pulpit. I am very confident, brothers and sisters, that if we channel our resources appropriately and make every home a church in the house center, and every shop, stall, or office table a pulpit, the church can only become stronger and better after COVID-19.
Vintage Pastor Tunde Bakare, he doesn't spare anything, doesn't hold anything back. The two talking points. The first one is, the ban on churches, saying that it doesn't matter if churches are allowed to congregate or not, that the most important thing is that people should congregate in their homes.
What he's saying basically is that there's no need for us to be physically present in churches because it doesn't even make sense at this time. We have seen from the example of South Korea that an individual who is a carrier of the virus is capable of infecting up to 2,000 persons. Some people have chosen to joke with this disease, but I'm not one of them. Those people prefer to play politics with it. I can only ask God to forgive them because they don't know what they are doing. Just like those who are nailing Jesus Christ to the cross. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. The truth is, we can't have a situation in which in Mecca, the holy mosque have been shut. The Vatican, the biggest church in the world, shut at this time. You are not going to see the Pope doing mass at this time. No. Everyone recognizes the fact that this is an unusual pandemic and that the way to defeat it is not for us to huddle up inside buildings and all that without a care in the world, without caring for social distancing. There is absolutely no reason in the world to compare markets with churches. I look at the church. There's a church in Abuja that I visited, the Dunamis Church. There's no market in the world that you can compare to it. The size, the sheer size of the church.
And take like 100,000 people at the same time.
You need to see the church to know what I'm talking about. Now, on a Sunday, you can imagine how many people will be there. Some of them will be carrying the virus. Some of them won't be carrying the virus.
Can never achieve social spacing, social distancing.
It is in Nigeria that we like to give the impression to the world that we are the most religious. Look at that Saudi cleric that abused our Muslim brothers the other day. Now, what are you saying? You are insisting that you must do Jumat. They said, for me, I have not done Jumat for some time. All the holy mosques in Mecca are locked. What's going on to you Nigerians? We played the video. Whereas the problem with we are not really, we put great accent on religiosity that is really impotent. That's what we do. A lot of us can't show mercy to people, yet we want the world to believe that we are Christians or we are Muslims. We are deceiving ourselves. If it was possible for God, when people mouth false sentiments in the name of religion, if it was possible for God from upstairs where he is to just give them a knock on the head, many people will be walking with half heads.
Yomi, a lot of people will say the likes of Bishop Oyedepo and Pastor Oyakhilome, what they are agitating for is that the church can actually play a very, very vital role in assisting government to heal people with coronavirus. That's, it was somehow wrong for such a long time that the church should be stopped from congregating.
Well, I think starting with what happened with Pastor
Bakare.
Bakare. It's, for me, when I look at it, it's largely a symbolic venture, which is a symbolic gesture, which is I'm offering up my church as an isolation center. Most churches are not even configured to have this kind of setup where you can use this as an isolation center. But is it good and a symbolic gesture that others can follow? But with regards to the church in Nigeria, I don't feel like the church is speaking with one voice. You have a number of people talking on one side and then another set of people talking on the other side. If they were speaking in one voice, then it's easier for the church to say, this is what we want to do in this particular area, whether it's offering palliatives to church members or any other thing like that. But here you have different voices, and it's always dissenting voices. The truth is that if there are many churches who there are many people who the reason why they go to church is because maybe they want to engage with other people. They want to. There are many who have been going through a lot, and they feel like the church is their only family. So many of them would argue that the reason that they go to church is that that's where my family is, so that's why I engage with people on a daily basis. Church will also argue that there are many people who suffer depression, and they're the reason why they stand in the gap for such people. And so if the church was speaking with one voice, then it's easy for them to deal with the government in such a way that they can say, okay, people with maybe 500 members and less are able to meet in a particular congregation at a particular time, so that there's good balance, across board for all the churches. But what you then have now is that everybody's having a different voice. And so those different voices are now looking like, the church is not one. Everybody has something to say, and then, there continues to be a problem. If the government has come from the one side and said, look, we don't want people meeting, congregating because of the risk of the pandemic spreading, then of course, everybody has to follow the rules, which is what the churches are doing now. So even though the men of God are saying that, the churches should meet, they are also still following the rules. They are not breaking the laws in any way. So that's my own observation from this.
Babajide, let's look at the symbol of what Pastor Bakare just did. And a lot of these Pentecostal churches, they have the financial wherewithal to actually assist the government. Yes. Number one, in creating isolation centers. They have enough spaces and enough areas that they can use for isolation. Some of them are running active hospitals right now. Yeah. Number two, even in giving palliatives to the society. So Pastor Bakare has just led by example, saying that, look, okay, this and this social place, I've given it to Ogun State government, and I've given this to Lagos State government. Don't you think other bigger churches, because Pastor Bakare, the Citadel, this church is just a church with one branch.
Have you been to Adefarason's church?
Yes, House of the Rock.
On the island.
Lucky.
You know how many buildings are within
because that is
area?
Just built like the Potter's house. Bishop Jake's church.
It's
like a prototype.
It's like a city on its own.
Yes.
With shopping malls,
yes,
banks, school, crèche, virtually everything that anyone needs. What Pastor Bakare meant was not for them to give up their church auditoriums. He said some of their halls.
The facilities.
You go to Adefarason's church, and you see numerous buildings where they do multimedia work and the rest. Such a well-organized place. It's clearly, in my view, the most beautiful church in Nigeria. Now, out of those numerous buildings, you can give up one to say, okay, at this time, we are not using these things at this time. Okay, why don't you, government, come and take this? Because we are in a mess. We are in a mess. And the more tests we do, the more the problem will expand. So the government has already seen clearly that, look, we do not have enough bed spaces.
In the isolation centers.
In the isolation centers.
Presently.
So we need individuals to come up. When people were dying in Kano, what did Dangote do? Dangote got up and set up a facility with the capacity to test 1,000 persons. 1,000. Not before now, nothing close to that was available. But as a son of the soil, he needed to help his people. I'm giving you this 1,000, this facility where you can test 1,000 people. That is the way our people should do. Because it's inevitable that we won't, government will not say, oh yeah, churches, come back. What would, or mosque, go and do Jumat. On the basis of what? What example are you drawing from? Is it from Boris Johnson in the UK, who has extended the lockdown by 3 weeks? Yes, they began the lockdown before us. Yes, more than 30,000 persons have died in the UK. Also, last Thursday, 860 persons died in the UK to coronavirus. So, as a responsible leader, he then decided to extend. As we speak now, there is even no clear-cut strategy about when Britain will get out of the lockdown. But there are signs that you see sometimes and you tell yourself, what do we then do?
In America, over 1.3 million people infected so far.
Infected, yes. Even Britain, you know, they've crossed that threshold. They were thinking, we will never get up to 100,000. We'll never, you know. So it's a terrible thing. Our church leaders, with the huge expanse of land that they have, and with the many structures on them, including schools that are not really operating at this time, can actually donate some of those spaces, you know. But the issue is we can't. The wisdom behind saying, no, let's not have schools at this time. Let's not have churches at this time. Let's not have mosque, do Jumat at this time. Nobody can question it. Because the crowd that you see in those places, you will not believe. If we are blaming people that they jam the banks and all that, do we then want to close our eyes and watch up to 50,000 people mass in one place in the name of worshiping God? As if God cannot hear prayers unless you go inside the church? Your church is your mind. That's what Thomas Paine said. Say, my own church is my own mind. It is not until we go into
physical buildings.
Yes, it is not. The church is not the physical building. And I'm happy that Pastor Bakare said that clearly, that it is not the body of saints is the church, not the building that you see. So this is, we cannot discourage the government at this time, pile needless pressure on the government, and then when things fall apart, and we can see clearly that the government has failed, we'll be the first to point finger, oh, Buhari has failed again. The old man has failed again. Yet we pile all the pressure, push him to take the wrong decision. But I expect the leadership of our country to do what is right. Even if people put a gun to your neck, once you know that it's not the right decision to take, don't take it.
I mean, federal government urges states to build isolation centers as cases continue to rise. Now, what we have in our hand, we have over 4,000 cases.
Yeah.
The latest figure is 248 new cases. Now a total of 4,399, and deaths 143. So states should start taking up the responsibility to build more isolation centers.
Yes, this is a big problem. This is also where we also need partnerships from the private sector, because a lot of states have complained that they didn't have the capacity to do this. Even the medical system does not have the capacity to house this many number of people in this many for such a pandemic that is so contagious, and that people can get it, that also exposes medical workers to the disease. So this is where I feel the private sector should come in. Last week we talked about getting more hotel owners and billionaires among us to donate some of their own facilities that are already sort of set up to look like hospitals. So for instance, if somebody has a large hotel, a number of European footballers have donated their hotels. So for me personally, I mean, that makes more sense than donating a church where you then have to set up to form into an isolation center and, you know, bring in beds and things like that. But with hotels and, you know, bigger facilities like that, you'll be able to have isolation centers. And so I think with the state governments, there's no need to shy away from testing. There's no need to shy away from, you know, engaging the private sector that operates within those states and see what they can do in helping to engage and also getting people who have been tested positive for the disease to then be isolated at those facilities.
Well,
So I think those things are quite necessary for us at this time.
Babajide Lagos shut two facilities, one hotel and a nightclub in Badagry. That's in Lagos for contravening the guideline issued by the Lagos state government and what we've done so far.
Let me just, because as we are here, people are sending messages.
Okay.
Bishop Peter Makanto in Adamawa State donated a newly built hospital of 100 bed capacity to the Adamawa State Government Isolation Center. Bishop Stephen Dami Mamza, a Catholic, as well as Adamawa State Camp Chairman, donated the pastoral center of his church to the state government.
Pastoral center of his church.
For over 50 beds capacity. No? So these ones were even done before Pastor Bakare announced that. No, and he has actually done it before he announced, you know. So we really need to assist the government to find bed spaces, because I will expect that even when you donate those things like what Dangote and the rest of them have done, they put beds there. They came, those isolation centers came with beds. Not that they just put them there and walk away. No, they put beds.
GTV built only Stadium.
Yes.
Beds.
Yes. So this is, they will come, they will put those beds so that you know that they are ready to use. This is what we want our people to do. I'm happy that a lot of our big men, you know, the boas of this world, you know, Abdul Samad, Issa Karabio, they are coming to the aid of government, because that is the best thing to do. If a footballer like Cristiano Ronaldo can say, my hotel in Madeira in Portugal, I give to government as isolation center, I want to see more Nigerians do that. You know, that's a good gesture.
I have my first caller. Omale is calling us from Abuja. Thank you for joining us, Omale. Hello? Okay. So, moving forward now, that means government is not the responsibility of government alone, Yomi. That we need so...
The truth is that a lot of the large big businesses that we have and the conglomerates themselves rely on the people, and not just the rich people. They rely on the masses to survive in this country. So this is the time that they can step up and give back to those masses that they have been gaining from. You know, big organizations, whether it's in any industry, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's telecoms, even the banks themselves, this is the time for them to give back. This is the time for the private sector to step in and assist governments in every state to ensure that, you know, we're tackling this disease together with one voice. Because if that is not done, what you're going to have is that, you know, when it starts getting out of hand, you know, you have hunger on one side and then you have the COVID-19 disease on the other, you might have chaos in some states. So we want to avoid that. And the private sector has a big role to play at this time.
Today, if you listen to Governor Sanwo yesterday or the first, and you will see that, look, it's somebody that is so much in pain, as in Lagos as a state stands a risk of another shutdown if the level of compliance is not encouraging. Now, in the Lagos state government shuts down two facilities, one hotel and another nightclub in Badagry for contravening the guidelines issued by the government. And the way the compliance level in Lagos has been very, very poor.
It's very bad, very discouraging. You and I know how much hard work these gentlemen put into their job of running the state. If you want to see our brother Tunji Bello now,
it's difficult.
It's difficult. It could be even at midnight that you want to see him there in one meeting or another.
Just
is that tough on these guys?
Team in Lagos.
And then you see the governor does not want people to suffer. When the first lockdown happened, he pleaded with the security operatives to be kind on the people, to treat people fairly. But what did we see? Some of the soldiers began even killing people. Policemen began flogging people. And we had a situation in which, in just a few weeks, up to 19 Nigerians had died. 19 Nigerians had died in the hands of policemen and soldiers before even 19 of them yielded to coronavirus. So now we are blaming them now that they are not enforcing the thing. It's because a lot of them pulled back because of the complaint that they were too heavy-handed. But our people are sometimes irresponsible. You have a situation in which people will go and watch strippers. You go to strippers club at a point when you were supposed to be in your homes.
Nice club.
I was going home the other day. The president has said there's a curfew in town. And I saw people sitting by pubs, drinking dens located near beside the road. During the curfew, they are drinking beer. That is the same thing that many people are doing in Sabon-Tesha, in Kaduna, in Barnawa. And if El-Rufai goes to such places now and it destroys their business premises, they will say the little man of Kaduna is high-handed. But you are daring government. You are behaving like, oh, whatever decision you take, it doesn't matter. And you are putting the lives of other people at risk.
Lindsay is calling us from Lagos. Thank you for joining us. Oh, she's not there again. Okay, I'll take this breather. When we come back, we'll talk more. It's still Journalists Hangout. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this breather. Welcome back. It's your multi-award-winning program, Journalists Hangout. We're reaching you live from Television Continental here in Lagos, Nigeria, and we are looking at issues around the COVID-19 pandemic. Yomi, how effective has been this kind of intra-state movement that has been banned? I don't think it's that effective.
It's not effective at all. I mean, last week we spoke about Governor Nyesom Wike in Port Harcourt that accosted 3 trailers that were bringing in not only livestock but also human beings as well. And you can imagine coming all the way from the north, you can imagine the number of states that they went through to get to that particular place. I think Nigeria has a peculiar problem in that a lot of our states are homogeneous. That means they were cut out from other states. So they are essentially the same. So it's easy for people to just
move from here to here to connect.
Kano, Jigawa, you have Kaduna, Katsina, and you have Kogi and a number of other states that are almost together. So people can just navigate through 5, 6, 7 states without being stopped. And sometimes, even with the security agents, what you then find is that with 1,000, 2,000, you can pass and get to where you're going. So I think that has continued to be a big problem. The fact that, the police has seen this as a big payday for them.
Yes.
And, so whether it's within Lagos here, coming to work this morning, there were about 6 or 7 checkpoints. And each one of them, you had a long line of cars that they had asked to park on one side. Instead of turning them back to where they're coming from, it's now negotiations for how you can pass.
Jide, the 8 p.m. Lockdown is quite effective in Lagos State since it started. You know why? Effective because by the time it's 8:05, you find the security guys, they're all over the place. Yes. And if you are apprehended, you'll be made to part with money. So a lot of people don't want to be caught that way. It's not as if they want to respect the lockdown, but they know that the opportunity,
they don't want to pay that money to the police.
Yes, they were using, that's like an avenue to make quick money. I witnessed that yesterday night. But when you look at Lagos, Ogun, and the federal capital, it's as if everything, is like in a standstill. But when you look at some other states, I saw a friend of mine posted a picture on Facebook yesterday. He actually went to church yesterday in Abia State. That means
maybe
the normal church service, everything.
Maybe they are back to normal.
Going on.
I still need a scientist to explain to me why the number of cases in the southeast is that low. Our friends from the southeast are the most cosmopolitan in our entire country.
Yep.
They travel more than anyone, either within the country or outside it.
Most outside.
Yet the number of infected persons from the southeast geopolitical zone is so small. Honestly, I've been wondering why that is so. I will be happy to have those people in good health in fantastic health. But I'm just trying to find out how come it is so low, it is that low in those states. There are some states that have felt that, look, there's no need for a lockdown. One of those states is my former state, Kogi. They do not think there's even any need for a lockdown. There were states that came up with a lockdown just so that they can protect themselves. States like Kwara, they came up with a lockdown early. Just let us see how we can protect ourselves. Kaduna too came up with a lockdown early, you know. But Kogi, they don't even think that a lockdown is necessary. Things people are going about, you know.
Jide, by fair in all this is that the number of people, our capacity to test, the number of people we test per day and everything, by the time we start testing like other countries, that we might have a kind of national calamity in our hands.
Yes, a big
because
one.
the way the community transmission, the way it's moving now, and a lot of people are moving with COVID-19 now. They're in their homes and they don't know. And if you don't have access, they will tell you that if you don't start showing symptoms, that there's no how that they can test you, and it's not. It should not be as that bad.
I had on this program demanded for the expansion of the basis or qualification for testing, because it happens in the UAE and a few countries. You don't have to be a suspected carrier before you are tested. You can walk into a facility for testing, you know, just to know your status, just like you want to know whether you are carrying HIV/AIDS, you know. And I think that will help us. But for now, that is not the case. The Ghanaians have tested 137,924 as of Thursday last week. They had tested 137,924.
Ghana here.
Ghana, they are the second highest in Africa in terms of testing after South Africa. We have tested a little over 20,000. I think the last time I checked, sometime last week, was 22,000 or so.
And we've tested a little over 20,000, and
By
we're
the
getting
time-
the figure of 4,000.
If we test 292,153 that the South Africans have tested,
It's fine.
or we test the 137,924
That the Ghanaians,
that the Ghanaians had tested as at Thursday last week, the figures will amaze us.
If we do that extrapolation, it's almost, you'll be looking at 40,000. If you look
not
at...
this joke, not this
Of
4,000 something. A lot of people will tell you
We
that
have
this
tested so little.
They refer to it as a live score.
It's
Ayo,
the time
we have tested so little. Yeah, the way it is going, we may overtake some of the countries that are ahead of us.
Yes.
Yet, when you look at the ratio of tests administered to the number of confirmed cases,
Yes.
it is extremely low. So, if we match up with South Africa and Ghana in terms of testing,
Probably. That's the most
only God
important
knows.
thing now.
You can see that even the Commissioner for Health in Lagos has already told us that the threshold for Lagos will be in July. That's when we'll reach our peak.
July.
Yes, and he anticipates that up to 100,000 Lagosians could be infected.
100,000.
Yes, at the end of the day. So it's like these are early days for us. And that's why I'm worried. I know that Prof is a professional, one of the best in the world. I sometimes ask myself, how did Lagos manage to convince this man to come and work for it? Because fairly, when you look at his pedigree, he's not the sort of person that we can pay his wages. But he has elected to come and serve his people. And I know that he's doing it diligently and honestly. So I don't want to doubt his projections. He's someone that I respect so much. But I'm truly worried.
I'm sure the 100,000 that you're talking about
Yes.
might be a conservative figure.
Well, maybe even for
out
him.
of 20 million people.
If we already have this case and we have not tested enough, just 20-something thousand, to around 20, let's say we have even tested 24,000 now. That's so little compared to what the Ghanaians have done. The Ghanaians have even deployed drones in collecting samples.
Now, in the international community now, we have new outbreak in China, South Korea, 5 new cases in that Wuhan, that evil Wuhan that this thing, Wuhan, sorry, that this thing started from.
Wuhan is
Oh, sorry, that Wuhan that this thing started from, and there's 5 new cases, and you are worried that in spite of everything the Chinese people did to mitigate, the spread of this thing,
I think
stopped foreigners from coming in. They, quarantine their people. Very strict regime.
Very strict, and part of the problem has been, and they've been talking about this, even the UK Prime Minister talked about this today, the fact that once you ease lockdowns, you see a spike in the number of infections.
Like
It's a direct correlation. So once you ease lockdowns, infections go up. So what has happened in Wuhan and a number of other countries is that they saw that their numbers had reduced significantly, and there was a lot of agitations from businesses, religious organizations to come back, to normal. And so the government then relaxed the curfew and also relaxed the lockdown. And then what you then have is immediately there's a spike. So what they're trying to do in all these countries is, because they still have low numbers by comparison to what they had a few months ago, they're trying to control the number of people and also do a lot of testing and also, follow up on, contact tracing as well for the people that these new cases have contacted. So now, with the benefit of hindsight, they're able to deal better with the disease and also the infections than they were in January. So I think, for this second wave that it looks like is starting now, they will be able to handle it better.
Okay, we have Yakub from Gombe State.
Yeah, good evening.
Ogun State. Thank you for joining us, Yakub.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Ayo. Babajide, good evening, and
Good
the other
evening.
gentleman in the studio. Babajide,
Yeah.
I know that you always say the truth. If the people on the other side as a government, if they care to listen to you, so be it. But Babajide, I want you to do something for Nigerian citizens. Is that the Madagascar issues? Because you said something earlier. I think you said something earlier, or you said, Babajide said, the Commissioner of Health in Lagos State projects by July or June, Lagos State is going to go almost 100,000 cases. Babajide, are we going to wait until that time? Or we call for the Madagascar issue to come and resolve our issue here? Because they were telling us that until they go to some true test, maybe when they consume this thing, at the other side, it may cause another thing. Babajide, what is the case issue in Madagascar today? Nigeria wants to know. We need to solve our problems ourselves. We don't need to wait for fighting that we don't know when it's going to come up. This is a war. We have to deploy all the arsenal that we have. Thank you, and God bless you, Babajide, and other people in the studio.
Thank you, Yakub. Thank you for your contribution. He's talking about Madagascar. I think the last time I checked, they
said they were
called for it.
sending some
Yes,
of
I
us.
think it's somewhere in the Equatorial Guinea now.
Yes.
And any time from now, we expect
get
to
here.
get to
Of
Nigeria.
course, we'll be subjected to a series of tests before they can confirm. There's been, even since January, there's been a number of people who have, talked about cures.
Yes.
It started with chloroquine, and they started with a number of, they
Even
talked
our
about a number
own
of other.
Owope here
Yes.
is talking about the traditional way
Yes,
they can use to
so
cure it.
there's-
Professor Morris, he will
Yes,
come
there's
out
already a
with-
plethora of, plethora of supposed cures for the coronavirus. So even when this one comes from Madagascar, it will have to be tested. There are certain countries who have already declared that they have 0 cases, or like New Zealand and a number of other countries like that. So for many of these countries, there were a number of things that they put in place that helped them. Apart from social isolation, there were a number of things that they did by locking up their airways early enough. So a country like Madagascar, that's one of the things that they did that has, that has helped them have very low cases. Now, we haven't confirmed yet whether the herbs for Madagascar work. When they arrive, NAFDAC said they are waiting for it. So we'll see maybe after a few days or a few weeks, and we'll see what happens.
Mr. President was told NAFDAC to speed up the process of examining and evaluating the veracity of the claims by different Nigerians that they have a cure for it. I think it makes sense like that, instead of waiting for that day when we will be told by the West or the rest of the world that, okay, a cure has been found. We can find that cure from within our country.
All right, Nigeria's COVID-19 situation is getting more serious. Some facilities are gradually becoming overwhelmed and people could resort to self-help or private treatment. But experts have warned against this. The Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, and the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives have warned against treating COVID-19 patients at home. The associations said such measure will increase infections as most people live in crowded houses. Yomi, you are living in Lagos Island, Jumota, you are living in densely populated houses. I mean, you know, the government is even asking me to self-isolate or, you know, when you look at the way they live in this densely populated area, you know, it's almost impossible.
For anybody to, for you to have social distancing.
Yes.
In fact, somebody said last week that God loves Africa. That's why it seems, because there's a projection that the WHO made last week, and they said that the virus seems to be spreading slowly in Africa.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that they said.
And
that they were projecting,
like
yes.
What is killing them
is not spreading as fast, and you know, there's been some scientific projections as well that it thrives in cold regions, even though it still requires more research. It hasn't been proven. So they're saying that, look, the reason why we haven't seen a huge outbreak and a lot of deaths in Africa like you have seen in the US and a number of other countries is because maybe our weather, there's also a lot of humidity and all of that. Otherwise, we would have seen quite a lot more because people are not social distancing.
Medical facility and the healthcare system.
People are not social distancing. Even people that live, you know, you're talking about people that live maybe in bungalows and 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom. How about people that live in face me, I face you houses, sharing the same bathroom, the same kitchen, and all of that, spreading their clothes in the same location. All their shoes are outside, so you can imagine.
Difficult.
It's really, really difficult, and it is. I think
like
just
came back from one of those houses.
And who is describing them? I
think if you've lived in Lagos for any number of years, like I have when I was much younger, those are the kind of houses.
The island.
Yes,
that island till today.
It's
like
that. Even with all the money in the world, some of them
they won't live there.
So
that's just their natural habitat.
It's quite terrible. Even during the lockdown, most of these people were living like that. In the evening, they come out, they have their drink. Some of them...
They sleep outside?
Yes.
They sleep outside. They sleep on the streets.
When it's very hot. So
yes, they just spread their clothes.
They wake up very early.
Yes. To have their
so
bath.
That's what you find.
I'm telling you.
So somebody said it's a divine orchestration that it looks like it's helping Nigeria. That's what it seems is happening. Maybe also a lot of prayers, because otherwise we would have seen something completely different, even worse than the US that is practicing distancing. A state like New York that has 40,000 cases already, one state. So I think there's something else that is happening to our favor.
In the US, the death rate is so alarming. Apart from the number of people that have contacted it.
When you look at the population of the US, it shouldn't be a surprise that so many people are dying there. But look at UK. The population is way smaller than Nigerian population, and already they have shipped more than 30,000 deaths in the UK. That's why Boris Johnson is reluctant to lift the lockdown. But I agree absolutely with the NMA that it is risky to embark on home treatment. The discipline to follow all the protocols, take your drug when you need to take it, you know, if you need to do exercise, it will be difficult for our people.
The designated isolation centers,
yes,
doctors are even getting affected.
Not to talk of people who, despite the fact that they protect themselves.
Yes.
Now, with your neighbors, you don't want to be stigmatized. With your neighbors, how do you not get close to them? The things that you used to do with some of them, you still want to continue. The same government has said that, look, self-isolation failed because people refuse to fully comply with instructions. So if you then say, okay, go and start treating yourself at home because we do not have enough bed spaces, it's the same way that it will collapse, because those people would then infect their neighbors. You know, the people who infect people the most are those who are not showing any form of symptoms. And those are the people that you need to either lock up somewhere. Because they feel that, look,
They are okay.
fine.
That they've not shown any symptom,
Yes.
but yet they say they
In
are positive.
in India, 70% of the carriers of this virus do not show any symptom. 70% in India do not show any symptom. So those are the people who relate with you like normal a person as if nothing is wrong, but they will now infect
Serious.
other people. So I do not support the idea of home listen. Let government also support states, and let the federal government support states at this time. Let the well-to-do in our society do their best to provide support by way of donating even their houses, because from what Bakare said, it was his personal building in Abeokuta that he donated. So people can do that. People look at Abuja, for example. There are so many unoccupied buildings.
So many.
Yes.
So
people have buildings
eyebrow
in Abuja
areas.
unoccupied.
Yes, unoccupied.
You know, in Asokoro and other places. So they can give some of them to government to use.
Mohammed is calling us from Lagos. Thank you for joining us, Mohammed.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening,
Mohammed.
Yeah, good evening to everybody in the studio.
We greet you.
Yes. I understand they want to get a cure from Madagascar. Why not look inward in Nigeria? Because I believe they have everything in Nigeria. They have people in Nigeria that can be able to give us a traditional medicine. If you look at it very well, you discover that even government have not been able to solve even malaria in Nigeria. Most Nigerians, they go to these herbal people to buy herbal materials to cook for themselves. So if the government could not be able to solve the problem of malaria, so how are we sure we'll be able to solve all this COVID-19 that is on ground? So as far as I'm concerned, they should allow us to look inward, so that at the end of the day, like what the Oni of Ife said and the other traditional people said, they will be able to come up with our own idea of treating this COVID-19, so that people can be able to cure themselves even at home. Because I do believe that this medicine, this cure will even be with us here in Nigeria. So let us look inward instead of asking for the Madagascar
Thank you, Mohammed.
cure.
Thank you for your contribution, Mohammed.
They've sent it now. We can't send it back.
We can't.
Let's test it on our people.
Definitely. Looking at other ways, and I'm still concerned about the number of people that have been discharged. When you look at Lagos State, it's quite encouraging, impressive.
It's impressive, and I like the governor's. Usually every evening he will put out a tweet and say, "I have good news," because people are waiting for good news.
Yes.
Everybody's
to decongest the isolation center,
Yes,
because more people are coming.
Raising our morale by saying that, "Oh, I have good news. We've discharged 5." You know, initially it was we've discharged 2, we've discharged 3. Now the numbers, the numbers are growing, and we hope that it continues. You know, over the next few days and into weeks. So, look, at the end of the day, I think if we increase our testing capacity, and also increase the number of isolation centers, and increase again the number of things that we're doing, in the area of palliatives and all of that, we will overcome the disease. It's just going to take a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of efforts, concerted efforts from the private sector, from the medical community, from all of us to make it happen.
I think, Babajide, what you should do is just to challenge the Presidential Task Force and NCDC that this testing capacity, I think that's what matters most right now.
Yes.
Because we don't know, so many Nigerians are there infecting people, walking around and spreading this thing because we don't actually know the number of people carrying COVID-19 amongst us.
Yes, and the president has to also talk to some governors. There are at least 3 governors or 4 governors who are playing politics in a very shameful manner with this disease. The president needs to talk to them, because this is not an ego trip. You cannot know what the greatest scientists in the world don't yet know, and be pontificating because you already have a kind of mindset on this disease. Some governors don't want it recorded against their states that they have COVID, and they are doing everything they can to ensure that, okay, their plates are wiped clean. The president needs to talk to those governors, four of those governors. There are, among those governors, I know a governor that there is nobody in the isolation center, not one person, but people are dying. People are dying. When people die, they give us the feeling that, oh, it is one disease or non-disease that killed them.
Yes.
But when you
Prominent
talk to healthcare workers in those areas, they tell you that
the symptoms.
those deaths are COVID-related. More and more big people are dying. Yet some of us still ridiculously refuse to understand that this is a dangerous time bomb that we are playing with. So, Mr. President needs to call these governors. Nobody, there's no trophy that you are going to win if they say your state does not have COVID. Don't block the path to testing people, because that's the basis by which we can find out whether indeed you have it or you don't have it. There was a time that Borno didn't have it. There was a time that Gombe didn't have it. On the day Gombe will have it, they had 5 at once. After Borno, until one retired nurse died, and they did the autopsy, and the autopsy yielded the fact that it's COVID-19. We never knew that Borno had it. And since then, it's been going up. So we have to get serious and stop playing politics with this disease.
Shegun is calling us from Lagos. That'll be my final caller for today.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Shegun.
Jide, it's always a delight listening to you.
Thank you, I appreciate you.
Properly educate me or inform me. What exactly is it that these governors are afraid of? What is the politics behind them driving the task force, the question task force? I don't understand exactly what are they hiding. Thank you.
Thank you,
Shegun. We have to leave it there.
Short,
Thank you. Yomi Owope, thank you for your contributions today on Journalists Hangout. And the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju.
I hope you stay well for some time. Welcome back from hospital.
I'm better now. And that's our offering. Join us tomorrow for another edition of the program. And also watch Journalists Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalists Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Ozugbakun saying bye for now.